10 years before you retired, you got the idea in your head. All right, this is a possibility. What steps did you take? Was it, here's our budget. Here's what I want to put into retirement accounts. Here's what I need on a monthly basis. I'd love to hear you talk about that, because somebody's listening like, man, it'd be cool to spend my 50s and 60s doing stuff I enjoyed.
Yeah. Or nothing at all.
Right? Yeah. But yeah, what was the action plan that really helps you get to that, quote unquote finish line?
I've always lived my life thinking there's more than this. There's more than this. There's more than this. And so the first thing I said is, where am I throwing money away? High interest credit cards. So I paid off credit cards. I said, I'm not going to use credit cards. I do have, full disclosure, I have an American Express card because I use that to pay for things on a monthly basis. So I get the points, and then I use that for my vacations. The bank fees, most people don't think about every time they go to an ATM. And what we were finding is every time I'd go to an ATM, not only would I get $5 in an out-of-network charge from my bank for going out of network, I was also getting charged by the other bank. And so if I took out $20 from another bank, I'm paying $8. So that's a net $28.
Wow.
So it's in business, we call it revenue leakage. And I identified the revenue leakage and then just said, I'm just going to put the minimum amount away so I could get the free money, because most employers in their 401k plans, 401ks, 403bs, they'll match, and generally it's a 4% or a 6% match up to dollar for dollar, or it's dollar for dollar up to 4 or 6% of your income.
Right.
But it's free money, and I'll tell you, when it really hit me was when I bought my first house, because I wanted to buy my first house. I didn't really have any money, cash in the bank. And I'd been putting money into my 401k just because people say put money in your 401k. I looked at it, it was $70,000. And I said, whoa, where'd this come from? And because the markets were going up and down, so I was able to buy my first house that way and stuff. So I just think that the first step is just to have the conversation with yourself, be honest with yourself, and put away whatever you could put away. If you could put something, just a little bit, because once you start to gain that momentum, then that becomes the game.
Right.
And you take away the stuff you can control, take away the credit cards, take away the bank fees. I think it's easy to say, don't try to be like the Joneses. Right. But unfortunately, the Joneses are in your face every day with all your Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube feeds, right? So you're going to see it everywhere, and it's hard to resist that temptation. But just stay within your own lane, and as I like to say, create your own lane. Don't play in somebody else's lane. Create your own lane. And I think if people could get that mindset, then they might find themselves a little bit more successful than they thought. But I think another key thing is I think you touched on something, the rising cost of everything, and everybody's tight. So when you look at something like retirement, I really tend to look at retirement a little bit different. I look at it as living my best life. And the way that reason I say living my best life is because the only thing that an employer pays you for, the only thing an employer pays you for is your time, which tells me that if you've got Microsoft, Facebook, and all these big companies paying people for their time, what's your most valuable asset is your time. And so the question becomes, do I focus on how I spend my time or how I spend my money? Because I think there's people like you, for example, who love what you do. Mm-hmm. You love what you do. You love the growth. You're doing a bunch of cool things. You get to meet some cool people. You do a bunch of cool stuff and you enjoy it. And you don't have to be in the office every day, right? So you're making money without being in the office and doing your thing. So retirement for you may be something different. It may be, I want to spend more time with my kids, or when my kids go to college. I know you've got the boys. So when the boys go off to college, I want to be able to go and spend a month with them, or whatever the deal is. But, and identifying what your best life looks like, and start thinking about what are the barriers for you getting there.
Right. Yeah. And like you talked about, I've heard it from a lot of different people. I think what most of us are searching for is time freedom. Yeah. That time freedom to say, you know what, I couldn't choose to work. I don't have to, I've done the work. What I want to pull out of this for people, I want people to hear this, is when it comes to finances, you have to have a plan.
You got to have.
That's what I kept hearing over and over. And I like analogies, and you relate it to, if you're looking to lose weight or get healthier, if you track your calories, what comes in and how much you expend, you're going to have a much higher success rate. And the same goes for your finances.
100%.
If you're winging it, right? And the rising cost of things, like you said, I unfortunately get to see it daily. And in my life, quite honestly, like I'm not perfect either. But I see people's finances, and I, am coaching them. And, as a mortgage advisor, I'm kind of like a debt advisor, through their finances. And unfortunately, this lifestyle creep, keeping up with the Joneses, is real. And 100%. People go from making 60 to 80 to 100. I think where I see people win, and so, I can just say from my experience of talking to people, is that they have that plan put in place before the pay increases come, before they reach a certain level of success when it comes to income. They've already got the plan, and they go, you know what? It only costs us $4,300 a month to survive. So when I'm making $5,000 a month, I could put away $7,000.
Yeah.
Once I start making $6,000, I can put away $17,000.
Right.
And then to your point, you start doing that, and then you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is I'm going to have the freedom to choose my time how I want. I'd love to, if you don't mind, just because I'm a numbers nerd and I've watched enough stuff about retirement. Like you said, I'm enjoying myself so much that I'm not even really thinking about it. But the numbers aspect of it fascinates me, because everybody's got a different idea. And I think there's no right or wrong answer. Some people like, you need X number in assets. If you draw this percent per year, this nest egg won't run out. But for you, sounds like 401k was part of it. I know you've got rental real estate. That's part of it. What all kind of makes up the plan that is the time freedom retirement at 51 for you?
Well, the one thing I do want to mention is that it's not just, a lot of people get focused on the plan because a lot of people are focused on being perfect. And the reality is that you just got to start. You got to do something. And so when I look at my plan, we have a plan. So I'll tell you a story. So last year, my wife and I we retired last year. So we went on a cruise. We went on a cruise to Panama. It was a nice 10-day cruise down the eastern Panama Canal side and all that. So we went down, and I was concerned, and I'm always concerned about money because I grew up broke. Mm-hmm. And I'm always concerned about money. And so I looked at I looked at what we paid for the cruise, and I thought, man, this is a big spend for early in our retirement, right? Mm-hmm. And I knew what our budget was, and that would have been our entire annual budget for vacations, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm nervous. Fast forward to, I don't know, 12 months or maybe 10 months from then, because I invested, I'm now $200,000 up from where I was then.
Wow.
So I've not only paid for the vacation, I've paid for the vacation 20 times.
Wow.
Plus. And so I think when you look at a plan, the best laid plans still need some revision. So I say that to say that when we put together our plan, we didn't plan around a specific number. We planned around our expenses.
Right.
And so what we realize is that what we are spending on a monthly basis, all the Uber Eats, the DoorDash, the Amazon, all of those things, those are all extras. But when you get down to the bottom expenses, we only needed less than half of what it is that we were making. Mm. And so what makes up our number is we were fortunate enough. My wife and I both had careers where we have pensions. So she has a pension, I have a pension, and that's a big one because that helps us offset a lot of the costs. We have our 401ks, our retirement plans, but we can't touch those.
Too young,
yeah. And we have 457s, but ironically, our plan didn't tell us to retire until 2026. And so we have 457s, which are non-qualified deferred compensation plans that you could plan. I don't know if a plan is the right word, but you let them know when you want to take the distribution. So right. You could take the distribution before. So it's called a 457. Anyway, so we've got money from that coming in, but it's really it's planning, it's managing the expenses. If we keep the expenses low, then our pensions cover what our expenses are, and then we just stay within our means and don't go too far outside of it and let the market do what it does. So we haven't touched any of our retirement stuff since we retired, just because we've been stewards of what it is that we do. and I still play golf once or twice a week. We're going on an Alaska cruise next year in May. So it's there's and then we have the passive income from the rental property. So
Yeah.
we have to be studious about what we're doing, but it's not. There's not a lot. It's not as much as people think. I think people think there's a idea that you have to be rich, and that's just not the case.
Yeah,
that's just not the case. It's you have to be judicious about your finances, but you don't have to be rich.